Digital fatigue. The reasons are everywhere.
It's like you're on an IV drip of just constant stimulation and noise.
Feeling like work and free time are not separated in any meaningful way.
We're crouched over and we're stuck like this and we're just looking at screens constantly.
What we're talking about really is the consequence of living in a world that we've chosen to be better, faster, and what I would call everywhere.
What do you do with that extra time? Now are you just going on social media, or now are you just working inside your project management tool and putting things together? Are you quoting more jobs now? What's the efficiency leading to?
Surveys have shown that 60% of employees say that they really do believe that their company is aware that this is a problem, and yet almost none have any formal plan to offer some kind of relief. So is there anything we can do to help our employees?
Strong companies, lasting partnerships, powerful events. Welcome to the Experience Builders Podcast.
Chris, can you give me your best yawn?
Yawn. Okay, you got to tell me that
today.
story. Why is that the test? What happened to mic check? 1, 2, 1, 2.
I'm just a little bit fatigued today. Thought I might get a little yawn out.
Oh, I see what you did
No.
there. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
man. I must be digitally fatigued to not have picked up on that sooner.
Okay, so you were just telling me, let's jump in where we left off. You were sitting down, you walked into Dan's office.
Okay, and so this was a topic that really resonated with me. And I go, so let me hit a couple of people up for reaction. Dan's like, oh my God, yeah. And I don't think, and you know Dan Griffin, right? So he's a hard charger. He's not happy unless he's going 105 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's just the way he lives. And so you don't think about, and he's all about any tool that allows him to live faster and more efficiently. But I saw it and he got it. So I said, think about this. I use my phone as my bedside alarm. So the first thing I do when I hear that is I lean over and I see a screen. And I hit that, and then you go, okay. And then I'll get up and I walk out and I will grab my iPad, which is on the counter outside charging. So I have a bigger screen, and I do my first round of, if I'm living the life I want to live, I'm doing my morning reading and it's on that pad. If not, I'm jumping into news or
Keyword if there, by the way, Chris.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
you're living the life you.
Then you go back, then I put my watch on, which, by the way, is a screen, right? And then I'm going in to get ready in the bathroom to get dressed for the morning. And I jump on a scale, which is a digital screen. And I'm out to the car as I started. And every car is what today, Khalil, you're looking at a screen. And, and I'm a wazer when I drive to work. So I'm interacting. Yep, there's a policeman still there. Yep, I'm passing a red light camera. And you get to work. Oh, then I'll stop at a drive-through for coffee or tea, and there's a screen. And I'm not even at work yet, and I've just interacted with 6 or 7 screens. Right? Then there's the work screen. Then there's a lunch decision, and I'm either going to order DoorDash or something to deliver a lunch on a screen. Or I may grab somebody from the office to catch up if I haven't seen him, and we'll go somewhere. But at the table up the street at Chili's or one of the restaurants, you order and pay via a screen at the table. I'm like, Judas Priest. Digital fatigue. The reasons are everywhere. So I don't know. First I thought, I was like, is this really a thing? And I started thinking about it. And there's no question. I think if you are listening to this, if you have a Gen Zer or a second half millennial, and you hear about the anxiety levels, and obviously a lot of that is screen. If you have a kid at any age that's dead staring their phone, if there's behavior that you see or that has changed and they're not interacting. I've got a young person in my company that he talks about the difficulty of dating because it's all communication on a screen. And when he daringly has an in-person meetup, he said it's awkward. We don't talk. We're just on the phone together. So I've seen signs with employees and loved ones of the stress that comes from that. And I just thought this would be a great topic for you and I to talk a little
Yeah.
bit. Let's try and narrow it to the workplace. But it seemed like it would be a lot easier after I realized how pervasive digital screens are in our lives. Would you agree? I
You
mean,
know,
is this making sense?
which is a good thing for more in-person events, right? No, I
I
went
like
to
what
a
you did there. And by the way, what's the hottest type of graphic in the in-person events is LED screens, right? Live graphics, and which we use to create really exciting, energetic
yeah.
atmospheres. But yeah,
I went to a Oklahoma City Thunder game. I've actually been to 2 now, but we're having a great season if you didn't know that. Um, I went to the game and decent seats, but like every seat in the arena besides floor seats, you're a distance back, and I found myself just focusing on the game and watching the game, and I felt like this like shift in my mind of like, oh, like you're staring into the distance further than 2 feet to 3 feet from a screen, focusing on something. And
mm,
I just never do that I mean, maybe when I'm driving, uh, but besides that, like I was just intently focused on the game at 50 yards away. And it was like a relief to my eyes. And that's just another example of we're crouched over and we're stuck like this and we're just
yeah.
reading and looking at screens constantly. So,
And,
anyways,
and I
I
I
think
want to come back and ask you a little about. Did you enjoy that? Did it seem like a break in the mind at all? Because, but just before we go any further, for those that are
sure.
listening, experience builders listeners, what is digital fatigue? What are we talking about? And just to be clear, and this is now really the common definition. It's a type of mental exhaustion that is resulting from too much time spent on screens, right? Also called technology fatigue or Zoom fatigue. I think everybody that's listening, Khalil, is probably nodding their head and can get what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
if you haven't heard the term before, you'll certainly recognize some of the symptoms, which can include feeling like work and free time are not separated in any meaningful way. Um,
Yeah.
you can be low motivation and morale. When I hit Dan Griffin up for that, he goes, "What are you talking about? I'm motivated all day long." And I go, "Well, how about you know, my 2 college-age daughters that when they're home, they're dead staring their phones, and I can't get them to go outside or to go over to a friend's house or to do I think people can realize that shows up in other areas of our lives. The physical signs, decreased energy, sleep disorders, I've experienced those, increased anxiety of some kind, even including panic attacks, and chest pains have even been reported. So that's what when we talk about digital fatigue, I think it's really that mental exhaustion that comes because they're really screens used to mean work and personal was personal, and it's all blending together, and
Yeah.
that's confusing, certainly to the body, if not the mind.
Which of all the screens and apps that you use, which one's the most draining for you?
The bathroom scale. No, you know what? It is, if my wife were here, she'd be like, "Well, it should be." Um, I I think it's the one you can't put down or turn away from. And I'm sure you could tell me some data about endorphins that are released or why we
Right.
do that, but it is just, um, I the one I notice the most, Khalil, is particularly if I'm out to dinner or something with my wife, or even if I just go home. When I'm talking to somebody and they just can't put this device down, and they just don't. I guess it really is. That's a form of anxiety for me when I'm like, "You're not even listening to me." "No, no, I am listening. I just got buzzed," right? We can't seem to create our own separation. So I think as we go into 2025 now, I think this is gonna be a thing I'm gonna try and tackle and improve if it's just calling out the people I work with or care about, or trying to create a workspace where we're using those devices in a way that's and that we'll talk about that as this discussion goes on about maybe some things we can do to reduce the stress. But I would say probably the handheld one is the one that gets me.
The
What about
handheld.
you? Is there one for
But is
you?
there a specific app on your phone? that
Um,
really, and I think we should define draining, because draining, I mean, it's not necessarily that it's um, really hard to do, like you hate staring at your email, for example. It's more so that like it consumes you more than others, and then it drains you and causes the fatigue overall. So it could still be your email if you're addicted to
well,
email,
so it
but
could, and by the way, everybody at different stages of life. So you've got a daughter, Mila. She's 3 right now or 4? Or how
Mhm.
old is she?
Yep.
Do you
And
remember when the baby monitor was probably the most stressful screen in your life? You're like, "Is
talk to
she
my wife, it still is.
is she" exactly. Um, yeah, so
I would say for me, Twitter is the one. And what's hard is there's things that are entertaining on there for me, but I really use it as more of a knowledge tool. I'm in communities on Twitter. I follow conversations about work, um, and I'm always learning from it. And then I just find myself checking it multiple times a day, even when I know I shouldn't. Um, and then it causes this like fatigue of seeing my screen and scrolling a feed, so that whenever I get to my email, I'm exhausted getting through my email. I'm exhausted getting through this. And then, but it's also, I find the alternatives are, I find myself watching TV a lot, love sports. I could sit down and watch, both of the basketball games that are prime time each night. So I think a really good book for this, Chris, that I've read 3 or 4 times, and it has had an impact on me, I will say, is called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
mm,
And it's a fantastic book.
The
And he
Ruthless
talks about,
Elimination of Hurry. I love that title.
yeah. Oh, it's a phenomenal book. Great read this winter if anyone's cozy in a cabin. But it's a really easy read too. And
Can we
one of the
put
things he
that in the
talks about
show
there,
notes, Khalil? I would love
we will put that in the show notes for our listeners. So basically, he talks about technology as one of the sections in the book. He talks about how I want to say it was 1960s, somewhere around there, Congress met because they were worried about the rapid pace of technology. The microwave was coming out and becoming a staple in the modern American household. And they were worried about what technology was going to do to life for people. They thought that in 20 years, people would be working 40% of the time that they had been at that time because
well,
of
I
the
remember
advancements in technology.
IBM was an early mover on computers back. I remember, in the
Yeah.
house I grew up in when I was little, and that I forget. Maybe it was Gates that said it. Maybe it was the head of IBM at the time. But they talked about you can do a full week's work in 35% of the time. It was the device that was going to make us all happier and a better, more improved wellness. We didn't use the word wellness back then, but it was a way because we were just going to be that much more efficient. And do you think they knew back then, Khalil, what really was going to happen? That these devices would
They probably did. It was a grand master plan to get everybody
yeah.
staring at blue light 18 hours of the day. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if they knew, but the reality is it didn't make us more leisurely.
Can I claim
It only,
reparations for something like that and get a life back that
hopefully,
seems to have run amok? Well,
yeah, you might be able to. No, the reality is though, with technology, it's only advancing at an even more rapid pace, right? And technology is not going to help you use less technology. It has to go back to just basic human boundaries that you set to limit yourself from technology.
so
And
that's
so I
yeah.
think for me, something that I've done and that he even talks about in this book is one, putting my phone in the car inside of the center console, whatever you want to call it, and just not even trying to talk on the phone, not trying to text on the phone, not trying to use maps on the phone.
Yeah.
Sometimes is hard, but as long as you're doing the normal commute, you're fine. Um, and just keeping it there, and try going in the car and not listening to music or radio, and not have the phone. Just drive. And having those breakups in your day will allow you to think clearly. It's like you're on an IV drip of just constant simulation and noise,
Yeah.
even in the car, right? Even in the shower, I listen to music all the time in the shower.
Yeah.
But just limiting that noise can really help. And then you can put color filters on your phone where it basically makes it grayscale, so you're a black and white phone, which makes it less appealing to go and look at your phone and to
Yes.
look at social media and apps and stuff like that. And then a huge one for me, and I'm in a 2-story house. I leave my phone downstairs at night. It's plugged in the kitchen. I leave it there. When I go up, the phone doesn't come with me. And so setting some of those boundaries in books like Atomic
I love
Habits
that.
talk about triggers and environment and all that kind of stuff. But I think those are some basic ones, but it really does start with our phone. It's only harder when you're on your phone as much as anybody, but then you work from a screen full time, if that's what your job is. And then when you go home, you watch a movie with your spouse. And then, I mean, you really haven't escaped a screen for more than 10 minutes a day when you were, even when you're in the bathroom, you're on your screen.
So I'm a movie guy, you know that. So 2 movies I'm thinking about right now as you're talking. One, we'll start with it's a nice one. So during pandemic, there was a movie that came out called The Social Dilemma. And it was really a documentary movie, but you watch it and I was left at the end, just there's no satisfying it's just you felt disturbed. But in a few words, it really interviewed all the content engineers for Facebook and TikTok and many of these social sites that these were the guys that like invented the like button on Facebook. They started off they went through their whole story. So this really started off as a good thing. And none of them were working at those places anymore. And some have joined a nonprofit to try and reverse the effects that's having. But they basically were saying this has now got to a point where we're targeting your children. If you get if your 15-year-old daughter or your 7-year-old daughter or your 23-year-old daughter clicks on something and looks at it, there's a corporation making money from that. And all you got to do is look at it. And the thing was, what I found most disturbing was, I think about my daughter at the time that I watched it, and she could put her phone down, and I'm having a conversation with her. If 10 minutes went by, it would send her a message where the phone would light up, and it was a bot that said, "Hey, check this out." Click, and there's an outfit or it's whatever. And when I got so angry with that movie, Khalil, that
Yeah.
and the subject is digital fatigue.
Well,
What do you do when the digital devices are stalking you? Right? And so anyway, the second movie, it was just a line for movie. I watched it on the flight back from Las Vegas this weekend, and it's a movie called The Way that starred Martin Sheen. It was written and produced by his son Emilio Estevez. But in a few words, it's the story of the father, and they were father-son in the movie. But the son dies in an accident, and the father continues his journey, walking the Camino, El Camino in Spain, which is 800 kilometers for those. For some people it's a faith walk. For other people, they want to lose weight. Everybody's got a reason, but it's a thing if you don't familiar with it. But in the movie, in a flashback scene, father and son didn't get along. The son said, "You promised that if I let you take me to the airport, you wouldn't judge my life and call me a failure." And father said, "I lied." He said, "Listen, I have a very nice life that I've chosen," the father said. And the son said, "Life is not something you choose, Dad. It's something you live." And my point is, now back to technology. Are we really living our lives, right? Or are we? And so it takes work. I'm a Denzel Washington fan who, the older he gets, if you follow him or listen, he's always got messaging. He's a man of faith. And he talks about, I challenge you. I've seen him in interviews say, I challenge you for first 5 minutes you wake up. Don't touch a device. Don't think of it. Just let your feet hit the floor out of bed and be thankful. Just think about gratitude and be grateful for life you had for 5 minutes. He goes, "Watch how hard that is to do." So,
Yeah.
you look at the clock, I reach over and I touch the phone to make the room light up, and next thing you know, there's messages waiting. So, this
It's
is
so
the
hard
challenge.
because it's so hard because it's become such a standard in our society. I
Yes.
mean, if someone has a flip phone today, you know how differently they're looked at, how many things they're removed from, and how the stigma that's around that. I mean, there in America, there's a stigma for having green messages because you're on Android. Um, like that's how, you know, the level that we've come to in our society today. So I just wonder, do you think it's possible to live a not screen free, but near screen free life, or
Screen
without
managed,
being
screen
Amish?
controlled, yes.
Yeah,
I think well, first things first, I think we have to talk about that this is I don't think in a broad group, people would it doesn't feel like there's a problem because there's so much advantage to being this well connected. I was trying to kick around what would we call this episode, Khalil, and other than digital fatigue, what we're talking about really is the consequence of living in a world that we've chosen to be better, faster, and what I would call everywhere. It's all news. It's all information all the time on demand, and we just couldn't get any faster. And then AI now is a new component to that. So um, I think if we talk about this and acknowledge, I think it's easy to figure out what the symptoms and the negative of it is. Can we become strong enough to just start to put some self filters on there? Um, so I found this site as I was researching this called Halo, HAIILO, and it really is. Um, it just came about in 2022, but it's an online platform that was created to improve for the workplace and the employee experience by combining internal communication, advocacy for employees and their wellness, and social intranet features um, together to try and start to address this. And very clearly, they talked about there's 4 areas that I can agree with that this is impacting our business and our employees. Number one, cognitive overload. Maybe think about the constant app switching, and it requires
yeah.
employees to quickly be changing. I find out the modern organization has over 300 different cloud applications in its world. Um,
Wow.
and most of us are using dozens of different workspace apps that can disrupt that continuity of work and actually can make the search for information more difficult and inefficient. So I love the idea of figuring out a way to create less. I mean, we're a company that's of a size, Khalil. We haven't made the leap yet to an enterprise wide one software does all. And the friends and owners that I have that do that, um, my cost data is probably 10 years old. But back then it was about $300,000 to convert to a system
To an
that did
ERP.
invoicing, CRM, marketing, you name it all. Um, so we have probably 6 or 7 apps on our primary dashboard of how we do business throughout the day. When you're switching from one to the other, plus managing whatever personal stuff you have, and we've got Life 360 to track the kids when you have a free minute, and I've got a lunch phone app that's going to order my and deliver my. You just think about the way your brain is jumping around. I think we don't think about negative consequences of that. We just think that's easy, and I guarantee you there is. Is your attention span what it used to be? Is mine?
No, no chance.
Is how does that affect your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your
With your
roommate or your
children.
parents or your children? How about the screen we put in front of the kids just to kind of be the babysitter so you could have a few minutes to get laundry and dinner going, right? Or, unintentionally we're doing these things, and so I think not to get on the soapbox and sound like the digital version of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But let's make America healthy again, right? Let's. I just think. Question: is there anything we can do? We're not going to abandon these technology conveniences, but is there anything we can do to try and de-stress or create a combination of how they're used to help our employees?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think from my perspective, having a team that's mainly knowledge workers and required to be at a computer 8 hours a day, there's no way of necessarily getting them off the device in my specific instance. But, our team is remote. Something that we have done, it's been a while now, but during COVID, what we did, uh, we would go on Zoom meeting walks. So you're on Zoom audio only, and have a walking meeting. So we're outside, we're in nature, we're able to just talk as a team, you know?
You had a
Um,
podcast years ago that I followed that it's called Let's Go for a Walk. And so
yeah,
there I was not walking, but I'm watching a guy going, "Oh man, that looks just so relaxing." And I'm going, "Just get out the door, walk outside." I live on a golf course. Go walk the golf course. But
yeah,
it was always a great conversation. You have such a soothing voice, and I'm going, "Why can't?" Well, I thought that was a great way to cut through the clutter of
yeah.
digital.
I need to get back on that one. That would help me get off my screen a little bit more.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. So yeah, I mean, that's a simple way you can do it. I think having more in-person meetings rather than digital.
Yes.
I think getting in front of a whiteboard rather than on a PowerPoint. Those are some small ways, but I do think giving even another one actually that I have seen before is requiring people to leave their desk for lunch, um, and getting them, hey,
Yes.
you have a lunch hour, but you're not allowed to be in your office. You know,
I like that
um,
idea. Well, so surveys have shown that 60% of employees say that they really do believe that their employers, their company, is aware that this is a problem. They're not hiding it, but if we were to open this up, most companies are going to go, "No, I could see where that's a real thing." And yet
yeah,
almost none have any formal plan to try and offer some kind of relief. So there was again, I go back to this guys at Halo. I was looking for selections. A few
yeah,
suggestions I liked, so how do you make the digital experience more interactive? Particularly for larger companies, right? If you're a company with 200 employees, there's a lot of data the company shares, and the belief is that sitting and reading and just staring at information can add to the boredom and fatigue. So, is there some way to create an internal podcast or webinar? Can you create content experiences where the audience is at the center of the experience, employees or even customers? Um, I do think the Zoom calling, I'm not a big fan of a Zoom presentation where 95 people Zoom in. You're not allowed to interact. You're just listening and staring. I think that adds
right,
to my boredom and fatigue. I think if you're on a 12-person call and everybody's, as a facilitator, and I'm expecting you to pull some people in, I do like that. And I think that's a nice way to create connections with remote workers. Um, they talk about creating maybe an internal um, social platform, Khalil. So it's funny, we do this on things like Facebook or some of the other social media sites where, you know, I'm a I'm a beach guy in particular that likes the Anna Maria Island. I'm in those chat rooms and I care what those people say. I got a guy in the office here who likes to do cruise ships. He just got back. He's on sites where people that are cruising are talking about stories. And he takes comfort for that. I think so they talk about segmentation and personalization. Maybe you don't treat all your employees in one aggregate group, but is there a way to keep it relevant? We have a Monday morning, what we call our blue dot meeting, where we talk about new opportunities and projects that are new to us. And the account managers and project manager in there, but I don't have all the guys in the back of the house in there, the rental pull and prep guys and the inventory guys and the shipping and receiving guys. And those guys are interested in things that, the other, maybe the broader audiences. So I think how do you make it more meaningful is another thing, the segmentation and personalization.
Mhm.
The other suggestion I thought was interesting, this is going to sound weird because it's more technology. Can you use AI to stream some of the screen time? I'm thinking in particular, if you're in the trade show and exhibit business, Khalil, you're doing a lot of research for the projects you're estimating. Where's the show? What's the floor plan look like? What are the move and move out dates? Overtime and straight time costs are going to be affected by that. They said use AI to try and cover a lot of that because those tools do exist out there. And if you can't, I mean, in other words, they were basically saying, think chat GPT and not Google search automatically. And can that begin to take care of a lot of the more routine or mundane information gathering? Because that's a big source of
Yeah,
stress, I think, for our
my
industry.
my only concern with that is just
Do you
like with
lose
other
skill?
technologies,
Do you
when
lose
we have
skill set too?
efficiency. No, I'm not too worried about that. At least, with the people that already know the skill set, they're not gonna lose the skill set. Maybe the people who didn't have the skill set before won't attain that skill set. But I think my concern is you gain all this efficiency by doing your research through ChatGPT and attaching multiple PDFs and having it give you the answers rather than you reading those on a screen through your email and all that stuff. But what do you do with that extra time? Now, are you just going on social media, or now are you just working inside your project management tool and putting things together? And are you quoting more jobs now? And what is it? What's the efficiency leading to? Just like the microwave didn't lead to us having 40% more of our time to not clean dishes and cook and all that kind of stuff. It just allowed us to watch more TV. It allowed us to be on our phones more and whatever, right?
At what point is that on us, though? Right? You,
Well,
you know,
that's my main point.
when do we
You
take the
have to We
responsibility
have
and
to find
go,
incentives. It all comes back to incentives in my mind. What is our incentive to not be on our phone? And with the
yeah,
dopamine, they've created these devices to trigger dopamine hits that are also fleeting. So then you want more dopamine hits because it wasn't
yes,
enough. It didn't
right.
actually come to a resolution. And, you know, so you have to find some sort of incentive. And I think it's a really interesting conversation for employers to try to incentivize um, digital detoxes or digital abstinence or whatever you want to call it. Um,
So this is a tie-in. We were having a conversation, and you and I talked about. I think we saw an episode recently about 2025, and I was sharing a lot of the information I was hearing from an economist that spoke at the EDPA Access event at the end of 2024, and he was talking about we're going to have a great 2025 economically speaking. The economy is poised for businesses in our verticals to do very well 2025 and 2026. We'll see some upswing in inflation in 2026, but you're there's no question we are going to have a longstanding and ongoing shortage of labor. He said right up through 2030. He said by 2030 the boomers have left the workforce. So there's an and so one of the things the discussions turned to was we really need to be doing a better job with young people or new people coming into your company to be talking about the jobs in a career minded way, not just a paycheck and a job way, because you don't want the turnover because it's only going to get harder to find talent. So to our current discussion here, if we can create a more caring, sort of employee wellness focused, does that mean productivity has to go down? If like I know whiteboard and we're talking about some things that sound more manual and maybe you don't get it done as fast, but if you're burning people out, if it impacts less turnover, if this is a place people want to come to work. I loved hearing at our holiday dinner party, one of the operators in the back in our back of house operations came up to me and goes, "There's never a day I come to work that I'm not excited to come to work." And he said, "And I've been working for you for 6 years." And I was like,
Mm.
it was very humbling. likes the people that he works with, likes the relaxed atmosphere, but we get it done. I mean, no question. So I dare to believe that we don't have to become automated, robotrons to maximize productivity. In the end, I think what we're realizing, and we see it in the humans around us, that this can really hurt people, and there's depression and anxiety. And so I think this is a big enough deal. I mean, the conversation we're having is about digital fatigue. And while it just seems this wonderful, all these great advantages of the technology that we have in our lives, there is a consequence to the better, faster, everywhere life we're now living. And
Absolutely.
I think I would look forward for us, Khalil, that in 2025 to maybe, I don't know, tackle some of the ways that we can not give up efficiency, but somehow get our joy back and keep that, and in a way that I like seeing pictures of selfie people and the way we gather and all that, and it's always fun to see it real time. But I don't know. There's got to be a balance. We have to find that.
I think it's a good, excuse me. I think it's a really good pitch in some of your sales meetings. Hey,
So
your
I
team
feel
needs to
like
get to this
we've not
conference.
offered any answers to you listeners, but we've done a great job creating anxiety about the life you live with all the digital devices and screens in your life. So
Well,
you're welcome.
I think
There's your
everyone's aware of it to
no,
some extent, and so conversations around it can only help. I think the challenge that we have as employers
yeah,
is finding ways of incentivizing or encouraging that for our employees. I think we've given some examples, the walking meetings on a phone call rather than
like
on
the
a
walking
screen.
meeting. Is there
Yeah,
can we make it
I
the
think there's
digital
also
experience more interactive somehow? I don't want to stare and have it be a static consumption of
yeah.
content or information. How do you get me involved? Because that's better. I think there's probably some constructive ways to leverage AI to
Mhm.
reduce your own screen time. I like the idea, particularly for larger companies, of segmentation and personalization to try and make that more meaningful and interactive, and less um, just stare and consume. And the idea of building employee communities and meaningful connections within the business space. Man, shout out to my friends at Blue Hive Exhibits. They've got this thing called the Buzz Squad. My friend Chris Dunn writes about that a lot. And, there's a beer club, and you don't have to like beer, but you can like that, each member will bring something in on a Thursday or whatever day it is and features that. There's other things they do for each other to interact and share some good fellowship and camaraderie that's not of a digital nature. And great, great ideas and I think we can all take a page from something like that. So, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think another thing is to have some meetings that are in person and no devices allowed. No phones, no laptops. Let's just be together, right? Let's talk about it. That can be a challenge, or maybe there's only one device in the room for the person who's sharing. Um,
we
but
do that.
anyways,
I do that with my family for Sunday brunch after church, and that is wherever we go to eat, I put my phone at the end of the table. I said, "Stack them up. First one that reaches pays." And if you know my daughters, they will never reach for that phone, Khalil. Once that comes,
there you go.
yeah.
I love that. That's good.
Well,
Well,
I
yeah, I think
appreciate
it's
you
a timely
unpacking this with me,
conversation.
and yeah, taking a swing at this. But
Yeah.
consequence of our success, and the technology that's now making our lives easier. If you're listening, I'm air bunnying when I say easier. So
Yeah.
anyway, we'll come back to that. I always appreciate you, and I'll see you
Yeah.
on the next episode.
See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Experience Builders podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content. Visit our website at crewxp.com to learn more about us. See you in the next one.